We are just over 24 hours away from WWE's Elimination Chamber PLE, the final premium live event before WrestleMania 42 in Las Vegas. And it's a big weekend because while we've been on the road to WrestleMania since the Royal Rumble back on January 31st, and for some, myself included, who believe there are breadcrumbs that are dropped as far back typically as Survivor Series War Games, we've been on the road to WrestleMania for some time now. But this is really where things start to accelerate, because once you get through Elimination Chamber, you have your four pillars, if you will. You have your four world title matches set and locked, and that's when the rest of the card starts to shape out. So we do have two matches as of right now, really one and then another with an asterisk that is confirmed for WrestleMania. We have Liv Morgan versus Stephanie Vaquer for the Women's World Championship. That much is certain. That is known. That is official. That is something we know we're going to get. And then you also have CM Punk versus Roman Reigns for the World Heavyweight Championship. Now, we've seen the graphics, but at the same time, there's an asterisk there because, well, CM Punk is defending that world title on Elimination Chamber against Finn Balor. So it's not official yet, and we'll talk about that match here in just a few minutes, but it is looking like, as of right now, we might get CM Punk versus Roman Reigns. But we'll also get two more matches that are made official after this PLE. Who will face Drew McIntyre for the undisputed WWE Championship, and who will face Jade Cargill for the WWE Women's Championship? That much we'll find out in both chamber matches on Saturday night. But let's get into the predictions. Let's get into the previews here of all four matches, starting with the Women's Intercontinental title, who is going to be defended by Becky Lynch against I guess you could still call her a returning AJ Lee. I mean, this is her first singles match since returning after a 10-year absence. The question I have with this one is this the beginning or is this the end of their feud? Because it's certainly not the very beginning. We've seen two face-to-faces, two matchups, including these two women before. First at WrestlePalooza, where AJ Lee submitted Becky Lynch, and then second at Survivor Series War Games, where AJ Lee submitted Becky Lynch. So it's not the very beginning, but there were other parts to the story at that point, and at this point, it is straight up one-on-one AJ versus Becky. So is this the beginning of their true rivalry, or is this the very end? I think the answer lies somewhere in the middle, because we've had enough story told over the last several months to know that this is a big rivalry. But at the same time, it's a little surprising that it's happening on Elimination Chamber. It's happening right before WrestleMania. Now, I understand it's happening in Chicago, which is AJ Lee's adopted hometown. She is from New Jersey, by the way, folks. But I'm a little shocked that WWE didn't save this for WrestleMania. Now, with that, I still think it's hard to imagine that this ends here. I feel like there's going to be something that happens that prolongs this storyline into WrestleMania. And not that it's going to be a rematch of Becky Lynch versus AJ Lee one-on-one for the Women's Intercontinental title at Mania. I think it's more likely that you get some more names thrown into the fire with this. It's more likely that you see somebody like Natty thrown into this title picture going into Mania. It's more likely that you see somebody like Maxine, who has stepped her game up to be part of this division for the Intercontinental Championship, her get rewarded in that sense with her first WrestleMania match in a big spotlight headline slot. And I think we see a four-way at WrestleMania. And if I'm looking at a four-way being made for WrestleMania, I'm not looking at AJ Lee walking in as champion, because if AJ Lee wins on Saturday, it's more likely to be a singles match, just a Becky Lynch trying to get her belt back. So my prediction for this matchup, Becky Lynch wins, either retaining via DQ or cheating to get a victory over AJ Lee in Chicago, creating more heat for a character that when she returned at WrestleMania 41, we couldn't have imagined her turning heel. When she did against Lyra Valkyria the following night after WrestleMania, it was not received in the way that you would want a heel turn received. The work that Becky Lynch has done over the past year to make sure that she is seen and received as a villain has been nothing short of spectacular. It's a reminder as to why she is one of, in her opinion, she is the greatest women's wrestler of all time. And in Sports Illustrated's opinion, she's the greatest wrestler of all time. And in Bleacher Report's opinion, she's one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. But this year has kind of proven that fact. So I think Becky retains, but I do think there's more to this story. Let's go over to the other side of the AJ Lee CM Punk household and talk about the World Heavyweight Championship match between him and Finn Balor. I have loved seeing Finn Balor back in a main event spot, similar to how I loved seeing Finn Balor back in a main event spot when he was vying for the World Heavyweight Championship when Seth Rollins held it the first time. Telling that story of it's been, at that point, it was, I think, 7 years since Balor had won the Universal title, but still blew his shoulder out, and Seth Rollins took advantage of that and then made jokes about it when he was a heel earlier in the decade. But I enjoy seeing Finn Balor in these spots because he's that dang good. I do want him winning matches, though. That's the thing. He's in the world title picture because, well, you can believe Finn Balor in the world title picture. It's not like he went on a winning streak to earn that. The entire impetus of this rivalry was CM Punk after he beat Braun Breaker. I can't remember when the promo was. I believe it was following the Braun Breaker feud when he said, I want to face, and he ran off a list of names to defend this title. Finn Balor was one of those names, and he essentially just raised his hand and said, present. Yeah, I'm here. Let's do it. Like, if you want to give out world title shots, let's do it. They did it in Dublin, and then Balor he weaseled his way into a rematch in CM Punk's hometown. So I want to see Finn Balor winning more matches. I enjoy seeing him in this spotlight, but I want to see him start to build a pedigree back when it comes to his record, win-loss wise, in WWE. I don't think it's going to happen here, especially if AJ Lee doesn't walk out with the Women's Intercontinental Championship earlier in the PLE. There's no way that they're going to make the hometown heroes 0 for 2 in the only singles matches on this card. So my prediction, as unfortunate as it is, CM Punk wins and retains. And the cherry on top for a Finn Balor fan like me is we get CM Punk versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. So at the end of the day, it's all good. Let's move to the Women's Elimination Chamber match, which is a very interesting cast of characters this year. You have your superstars in Rhea Ripley, in Asuka, in Alexa Bliss, in Tiffany Stratton, and then you have two wrestlers who have done a really good job to put themselves in this position and earned the opportunity to be put in this spotlight. Raquel Rodriguez, who's been doing tremendous work over the last couple of months and really over the last year, but specifically the last couple of months when she's ascended into that world title picture. And Kiana James, who to me earned this spot with a really impressive performance at the Women's Royal Rumble in Riyadh. She was one of the wrestlers on that PLE that really made you look and go, wow, okay, let's start paying more attention to Kiana James. I know she's in a managerial role for Julia on SmackDown, but she can go, and she proved that at Royal Rumble. And then they gave her that opportunity to pin Charlotte Flair on Friday Night SmackDown, an inventive way to take down the Queen, but puts Kiana James in a really solid position going into the last PLE before WrestleMania. Now, when I look at prediction-wise how I think this might go, I'm between Rhea Ripley and Tiffany Stratton. I think it's between those two to see who wins and then eventually challenges Jade Cargill at WrestleMania. When I look at Tiffany Stratton, though, I say this is a matchup. If she wins and goes on to face Jade, this is a matchup that we've seen 4 times before for that same title. Tiffany defended successfully 3 times versus Jade before eventually losing the belt to Jade Cargill in November. So 4 times those two have fought for the belt in the last 6 months. Are we going to go back to the well again for WrestleMania? Are we going to show that again at WrestleMania, considering that was the title match, not just 4 times, but on the last huge stadium show? I know technically Royal Rumble was a stadium show. Technically Survivor Series was a stadium show. But the last 2-night huge stadium show at MetLife Stadium was SummerSlam. And it was Tiffany Stratton and Jade Cargill. So because of that, and maybe I'm galaxy braining this, but because of that, I'm leaning towards Rhea Ripley. I think Rhea Ripley wins. And what I see for WrestleMania 42, because we've seen it with some of the biggest stars in WWE, I see double duty for Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania, because those tag titles and that tag division is way too hot to leave it off the card at the biggest show of the year. It's been way too good for it to not be represented on WrestleMania. I feel like Rhea Ripley defends the tag titles on Saturday of WrestleMania and then contends for the world title against Jade Cargill on Sunday. It's the perfect way to bring your most marketable superstar in that division to both Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown consistently as we build to WrestleMania. It's great for ratings. It's great for arenas because it's one of the biggest pops every night is when Rhea Ripley comes out. And it's great for putting butts in seats because Rhea Ripley is box office. And if you have her pulling double duty, similar to what we saw Cody Rhodes do at WrestleMania 40, similar to what we saw Seth Rollins do at WrestleMania 40, similar to what we saw Roman Reigns do at WrestleMania 40, she is that person for the women's division. Let her pull double duty. She's up for it, and she's been up for it for the last couple of years. So this would be WWE really putting the stamp of approval on Rhea Ripley as the face of the women's division, if she isn't already that, going into WrestleMania 42. Let's close it out with the men's elimination chamber. A really mixed bag of stars here. We have legendary star Randy Orton. We have the face of the company, QB1, Cody Rhodes. We have the fan favorite, LA Knight. We have 2 up-and-comers that are just absolutely blowing the doors off of anybody's expectations. And I did a video on this, I believe it was last week, talking about the future stars that have just emerged in early 2026. 2 of them will be in this matchup, Javon Evans and Trick Williams. And then we have main event Jey Uso, who's trying to get into the world title picture for a second consecutive WrestleMania. This one, to me, is hard to figure out. And that's because Drew's title reign has just been hard to figure out. He wins it surprisingly to kick off the year on SmackDown. And then the title picture is essentially half the roster of SmackDown. So when trying to prognosticate and predict who's going to be his WrestleMania opponent, while a lot of us simply looked at it and said, okay, it makes sense to be Cody Rhodes, but similar to what we said with Tiffany Stratton and Jade Cargill, we've seen that so many times. Is that really the matchup that we're going to go with for what a lot of people consider is the most prestigious belt within the company, which is the undisputed WWE Championship, the title that was held by Roman Reigns, the title that was held by Cody Rhodes in one of the biggest moments in WrestleMania history, the title that became the Never Seen 17 with John Cena. Is that belt going to be defended on the biggest card of the year in a 8th matchup between Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre? It doesn't feel that way. The only way that we can go in any other direction besides Randy Orton or Cody Rhodes feels like if those two take each other out, one turns on the other, more likely to be Orton than Rhodes at this point because Cody is the white meat babyface still. And we see Orton versus Rhodes at WrestleMania in a non-title fight. But then where does that leave the title? Does that leave Trick Williams to step up and really get that push early in his career and get an opportunity to be in a world title match in his first ever WrestleMania? Does that go to Javon Evans, who has stated, I think the one time I heard it was on whatever it is now, WWE Now / Raw Recap, when he was talking to Sam Roberts and Megan Morant and said his goal is to become the youngest world champion in WWE history. He's trying to beat Randy Orton's record, and he has a couple years to do it, but is now the time? Does Jey Uso get back into that spotlight? Does LA Knight finally get the opportunity to capitalize on all of the momentum that he has built over the last several years? It could go in a lot of different directions here. It really could. Now, I really have no confident answer when it comes to a prediction, and that's what I want. I want to be confused going into these matchups because I want to be able to enjoy it. I don't want to be able to see what's coming. I don't want to be able to tell what the direction is going into a big PLE, especially this time of year. So I enjoy the fact that I really have no idea. So I think the odds favorite would be Cody Rhodes. And where else would we go from there? Because you don't get Cody Rhodes in a world title fight if he loses on Saturday. Drew McIntyre has stated that plainly. It would be kind of a 180 from this entire storyline of Drew telling Cody, hey, you've gone to the back of the line. You have to earn it. And then him not winning the Royal Rumble and him not winning Elimination Chamber and still getting awarded a title match anyway. That would not make much sense. So because I have no other idea of where we're going to go with this, I'm going to go with Cody Rhodes. It's the safe pick, but I don't know if they're ready to push these young stars, a Javon or a Trick. I don't know if they're going to go back to the well with Jey Uso, especially because he's holding the tag title right now. I never know if they're going to push LA Knight. I never know if LA Knight's going to be the guy that gets the moment. He's had so many opportunities to be the guy that gets the moment over the last several years, and it just hasn't happened. So I'm not going to try to predict it at this point. It's a believe it when I see it type thing, but it's going to be a fun PLE. It always is a fun PLE. It's a tough spot for it to be in after the Royal Rumble, which some people view that as their favorite, and before WrestleMania, which is the biggest show. It's always put in a tough spot, but I think it's going to deliver in Chicago this year. But that's going to do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let me know in the comment section, who do you think is going to win in these 4 matchups on Saturday night? That's it for this one. We'll see you guys next time.